personal power, people positive, the community of connection. This is the Bob Jeswald Show.
Today is a good day any time of the year when your child is safe around water. You hear about personal flotation devices, but a program with Stephanie Hogan. I got Rachel Ray Creamer, who's also a recipient to it and has an incredible story. In this 30-minute podcast, we're going to learn about child safety around water and why they need to know how to swim. How early could we do it, Stephanie?
We can start at 6 months.
Okay, that's early. And I did with my two daughters, my first two, my oldest and my middle. The third one, I waited a year.
Yeah.
But it's incredible to see them like little flotillas, and you throw them in the water and they end up on their back. It's unbelievable. Your program has a very specific acronym. Break it down for us. What is it? ISR?
ISR. It's Infant Swimming Resource.
Yeah. Okay, great. So Infant Swimming Resource, 6 months old. Rachel, you got Savannah, your youngest daughter, in it. This is a mom who's heavily involved. But you're very passionate. Before we get to Savannah, who's learning how to swim now, what geared you up, and I know this is always very emotional, but you're going to do good. We're going to keep it so positive. Our brother Louie, I call him Louie. He's my little favorite. Louie had an accident a few years back in October, and we had a pull in the back. And it happens. It happens to so many of us. But the God blessing of this whole podcast, Louie is still with us. He did suffer. He's got cerebral palsy now. He suffered lack of oxygen from being submerged under the water. But, Mom, thank God you were directed. You found him in time. And amazingly, Louie is here with us. He's responsive to neurological responses. When we say we know he hears, he knows what's going on. But it's been tough. It's been a challenge, no doubt about it. But you don't want this to happen to any other family.
I mean, it happens. I mean, every year there's 4,000 deaths in the country, 8,000 deaths or 8,000 non-fatal injuries. So, I mean, there's 22 kids that have survived a drowning a day in this country, and they're dealing with, majority of them are dealing with from mild issues to major, like we are, with a G-tube, trach, neurological issues. Some have come out miraculously, but again, CPR is one of those things. The quicker you administer CPR from finding them, the better the chances. Louis, he actually, before he got a heartbeat and brain activity, went almost 2 hours. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that itself is a miracle.
It's a miracle. No, it's a miracle by far.
So, I mean, they say 30 minutes. If you last longer than 30 minutes without CPR, there's major issues that are going to be there.
But Louis, considering the fact that he has so many medical marvels with it, the chamber that you use, it's a hyperbaric chamber. Is that what it is? Yeah,
hyperbaric chamber.
And it does amazing things. And you lie in there with them. You know how to do all that. It's not encouraging anyone out there to say, hey, let's go lie in the chamber. Let's go to Rachel's house and lie in the chamber. There's specific things you got to know and understand how that works. So we've been wonderful for that. But now you're advocating for something good. Your daughter Savannah is part of what Stephanie Hogan does with her group, with Infant Swimming Resource, ISR. Infant Swimming Resource. Mm-hmm. Tell us about Savannah and ISR.
I mean, it's a wonderful thing to see. Seeing Stephanie, I've seen her deal with young babies that I wouldn't even think of would be able to respond in that way. But Stephanie's very natural with them, and there's a communication between the babies and Stephanie where you can tell where Stephanie can understand where the baby's coming from and everything. And I think we're 3 weeks in her, 3.5.
We're in the fourth week.
Fourth week. So it's 6 weeks for the beginning
Gotcha.
section. And, I mean, seeing Savannah swim at 3.5 years of age, float back and forth to the pool is crazy. I mean, I didn't start swimming till I was like 6, 7. So, I mean, seeing babies do this is crazy cool.
So, you know what? I think this is so cool, Stephanie. You get the inspiration to do it. I remember when I did it with mine. Is it still let's do it together? You blow in the face? Or is that not true? Tell me about that.
True.
I know. I want to hear it because I heard that recently, and that's how we did it. It happened to work, but it's not the right way. Why is that?
Right. So ISR was founded by a doctor and a psychologist, and together they researched and they figured out how can we teach children as early as possible. Actually, the doctor, He was on his lunch break and he got home and an ambulance was next door and he was like, what's going on? The toddler had drowned in the creek behind the house. And since that happened, that just like triggered him to do research. And they found out that children can start learning how to float at 6 months old. And then after 6, we start teaching them how to swim at a year. So ISR, we try to break those statistics that drowning is the leading cause of death for children up to 4 to 5 years old. And how can we break that? So we can teach them how to float at 6 months, and they are independent.
That's unbelievable.
Float.
At 6 months. And how long could they float at that age?
Forever.
Yeah, that's what's so wacky.
There's no you don't use any energy to sit there in that float. So you can do it. I've had plenty of parents that ask me, how long can they do this? And I'm like, forever.
I want people to go to the Chattahoochee Valley ISR.com. He's got some incredible stuff here. It shows a little child in the picture. Give your child the skills of aquatic safety with infant swimming resources, self-rescue program. Yes. Register trademark, Chattahoochee Valley ISR, but they're all over. Anyone listening to this podcast,
they're all over.
You guys are all over. So this is a chapter of the Chattahoochee Valley where we're
Right.
talking today. Okay, so there's chapters all over the place. So there's Stephanie Hogan's and Rachel Ray Creamer's all over the place. Right. Okay.
And I have never seen an incident like hers. I mean, I see it. I get videos. We follow incidents through ISR. I see that, but I've never seen a kid personally with my own eyes. And so when I first saw him, it just like, I mean, I know exactly what he went through. I know exactly where she's at, which just like is very upsetting to see that. But I'm so passionate to teach Savannah. Because, that's so important that now she's going to have this. This is not going to be an incident for her ever.
Right.
And for me to be able to give that to Rachel, I mean, that's enough for me.
It's a gift. There's a purpose. Rachel, I've told you this before, and I said this to your husband. I know you got your faith. Louis is teaching us a lot here, and he's given everyone all this stuff. There's a reason why he's still here. And this is part of it,
Right.
and I think we're going to touch just one person today. It would be great if we can help, as you say, your child to overcome fear, can build confidence, teach them lifelong life-saving skills, which is so critical. It's not as easy as someone listening today to say you just throw your child in the water. What and you think, okay, if they're okay, they're going to float back up, and we'll get in there and we'll try to do floaties. I want to disperse this method right now. Floaties, good or bad?
Bad.
And they're bad because
it puts a false security on that child. That child does not understand, oh, this is what's helping me be in the pool. They don't have the cognitive to understand that. So you take those floaties off, and they're like, oh, I want to get back in the water. They're going to jump back in there thinking, oh, I was fine just a minute ago. There are so many drownings because parents, oh, it's time to eat lunch. Let's take your floaties off. We'll have lunch. And before you know it, they're in the pool.
That's how easy it can happen. I mean,
it's so easy.
It's crazy, and it's no one's fault. I mean, I'm a parent too. I'm just fortunate that the thing didn't come down to my one daughter. Like a whole entertainment center was. I mean, that's all I had to do is just turn my back one more second. I wouldn't have been able to stop. I mean, so no one's ever at fault.
Right.
No, we don't mean it's just it is what it is. It's just we're just cast that time in our life, and God, only knows, and so always never punish yourselves, but we can do this preventative stuff, and this mission of Rachel's and Stephanie's is going to go a long, long way. Your team teaches ISR survival skills, but you also teach traditional swimming lessons as children grow older, which is important, stronger in progress, understanding, the safety of water. And I'm thinking of the beach, or again, whenever you listen to this podcast, somebody's at the beach or they're near a family pool or a pool that's in a what do you call it? Your apartment dwelling or whatever it may be. The beach, though, it blows my mind when I see folks that are there. I could have even got you some tissue. I'm sorry. I got better. That's like sandpaper, Rachel. Poor Rachel. She's gonna be. It's exfoliating paper for your face. That's what it is. It's exfoliation while you're crying. Lewis is exfoliation to things. You wipe them on there, and it kind of is like abrasive. But the thing is, when you see people with the floaties, going back to that, and they're at the beach. What's up with that?
My best explain, because I get asked that all the time, especially we're getting into summer.
Because you're thinking you got to have something at the beach. You think, well, they're going to float, and then they won't get pulled under the wake. But go.
I tell parents that we are completely against floaties, but if you are in the ocean, if you are in the lake, if you're on a boat, it is the law. put some type of floating devices, hopefully a life jacket. We promote certain life jackets. It's called Hyperlight. ISR is really behind Hyperlight life jackets because they're super light and kids can practice swimming and they can practice going to their float. Certain life jackets will force a kid face forward and then they can't get out of that.
Gotcha.
And so every time that I do lessons, I do a lot of just education. You know, it's so important for this kid to learn these lessons, but it's 50% as important for that parent to understand, how do you swim with your kids? How do you get them stronger where they're at? And educate them about life jackets. And so at the shore, that's your decision if you're going to put your kid in life jackets. I don't put my kids in life jackets at the shore. But, I mean, I'm like, you cannot leave this puddle. You don't go any further.
And that's the point I want to make. I think it's critical to make that distinction.
Right.
Because I want everyone to know that just because Bob said or anyone said, we're not just going to say go to the beach or go to the lake or you're on a boat. I mean, you can hit your head. You could be on the river doing whitewater rafting or something. And that's why they wear rafts, because if you get clunked out, you obviously nothing's going to matter except you want that personal flotation device, the PFD, to keep you up and afloat. Some are not great. So there's a lot of education. And as you said, some may be more prone to put you forward face down, and that would make a child maybe panic or whatever. You said education, which I love, because children 6 to a year, children 1 to 5 years, Savannah falls in that one, Rach. And
we did too. He was 20 months.
Okay, great. So that's good. So tell me about that now. How did that go?
Since Louis was 20 months of age, I mean, it was one of those things. He got out the back door and fell in. One of the major things that we think is there was some pool cleaning equipment in there, and I was doing it earlier that day, so we think maybe Louis wanted to help, the curiosity of helping.
Sure, he's a boy.
Yeah.
We're all there, and I know that.
And boys are at the worst because they're the highest risk too, as well as the age. So, I mean, that's one of those things as, like, take the things out of the pool.
Good advice.
That's a big thing.
It's a draw.
It's a draw.
It becomes a draw. Toys. Hey, look, Mom was doing this. I can reach in her. And maybe, we don't know, but maybe Louis did that and said, I'm going to help Mom out, in his mind. And then that's what happens. And that's why the safety around there is so critical. So with ISR starting and everyone getting involved in doing that, with you, this is your website. You have an app, or is it mainly your website you like people to go to?
It's mostly my webpage.
Yeah, and we're going to do it again. I keep calling Chattahoochee Valley ISR.com, but you can go to any ISR sites in your town, whatever it may be, and infant swimming resources are available, I would think, at the United Ways or you can find.
I tell people that, especially this is military, we have a lot of people that move around here, so I get a lot of military that comes and they're going somewhere else, and they'll say, how can I find an ISR instructor? Because my biggest thing is, if you find an ISR instructor, you're good. Your kid's going to know how to float. They're going to be independent. It depends on their age. Like at a year, we start teaching them how to swim. And then, especially like with me, I'm going to start working on their strokes. I'm going to start working on diving down and diving into the pool. So I always tell people, wherever you're at, go to infantswim.com, and that's pretty much ISR's webpage. And when you get there, you can put in your zip code, and it will tell you who's your closest ISR instructor around you. When I came on as an ISR instructor, we didn't have an ISR instructor for a about 2 hours away from us.
Right.
So when ISR found out I was interested, they were like, please become an ISR instructor. Your area needs one so bad. And we try to make sure there's one for every couple, I think 50 miles or so. We try to. So usually if somebody just looks it up, you will find somebody.
And that is what you did, Rach. How did you get directed into that?
Well, I'm part of many Facebook groups with other families who have been in the same situation we are, and it's a great community.
It's good connection too.
Great connection. Several different stages of kids, and I mean it helps a lot.
Absolutely.
But they started talking. A lot of the moms who've had non-fatal drownings or even fatal drownings, they get inspired to do the ISR. And there's a lot of talk about it. A lot of parents are passionate about it. There's some that just can't do it because it's been overdone in their area. There's too many in the area, so they can't do it, but they do. They've done news interviews, podcasts as well. One of the things that helped me is there's many charities out that do help with paying for it because it is a little hefty.
Sure.
But that's worth
A life is worth. I mean, you would sell the house. You'd live in a tent.
Yes,
because you can make a difference, save a child.
Yeah, the amount of money we spend in a year on Louis stuff is nothing compared to a 6-week lesson with an ISR instructor.
And speaking of which, what are we looking at roughly? If somebody's listening, they're going to check the website out. But what are we saying roughly?
So
basic course.
And I don't know the total. I could total it. But normally when I start, my lessons are always $115 a week.
Oh, that's
it's
great.
It's 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You have to pay the $105. You have to go through ISR, and they have to evaluate your kid, make sure they're physically, mentally okay to start the lessons. And then they come up with a specific protocol for that child, and then they send it to me.
Yeah.
And then that helps me teach them exactly what to do. Especially I have other kids that have Down syndrome. I have some kids that have Rett's. I get all kinds of different
So
types.
that you answered my next question.
Yeah.
Because I think that's pretty cool. So anybody listening to it or thinking, hey, look, my child has this disadvantage or maybe a disability in some capacity, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a fundamental natural response when a child gets in that water to flip on the back. How does that work?
So when I've had tons of parents that ask me, like, oh, it's so funny because kids already know how to swim when they come out. Like when I teach 6 months olds,
Sure.
I'm like, that is a wives' tale.
Oh, it is. So that's another wives' tale.
That is a
Okay,
wives'
they're in a
tale.
womb. They're in water already
Right.
in the mother's womb, and so therefore they could come right because some women like to birth in water. You know,
That's
they like
true.
to give. So they go from water to water. I get all these spiritual references now, but when you look at that though, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. But then again, children at that age, like everybody who has kids understands, when they're that young, they're like sponges and they just take everything in. They're taking in your communication and they're mocking what you're saying because there's
no fear.
They're just soaking
They
it
don't have
in.
no reference of mortality or anything. I mean, so when I was younger, I used to do some I jump off of cliffs, I'd dive into water, like stupid stuff. Now I'd be like, holy mackerel, how did I must have had a guardian angel over me. Who in the heck would do that? I mean, I used to swing on vines. My mom found out I was swinging through huge gullies.
It would give me a heart attack.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the risks we take as young boys or kids in that. But at that stage, which makes sense. I mean,
It's
that makes
so
sense. They're
easy to
sponges
teach
and it's so easy
them.
to teach. So get them. So I think with the lesson to be learned here, should we want anybody listening, get these kids. It's never too late. Like Rachel, get Savannah now or whatever. But it's best to capture them under a year is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I have parents that reach out to me a lot and they're like, should I wait or should I do it sooner? And I said, the sooner the better.
Okay.
Because you do it sooner, they already have their float, and then you just add on the swim to that.
Okay.
And it's like sponges. I mean, it takes me normally for floaters, which are under a year, it takes me about 4 weeks normally to get their lessons mastered because it's so easy. I mean, just teach them that. But the thing is with me, I hear about drownings and even our local drownings that we have in Columbus.
We have quite a few every year.
And it
like
just breaks my heart. And I feel like it's not me sending out enough education because I really honestly feel if a parent has a pool in the backyard and they know ISR is in this community and they know that just the fact of teaching them how to flip over on their back can save their lives.
So how quick does that happen? Okay, I show up. This is day one. I'm at ISR with Rachel Kramer, and I'm there with Stephanie Hogan, and we're just sitting there. Hey, here's my child, 6 months, or I got a grandbaby now, so my new grandbaby, I got the third one, but he's just newborn, but let's just say he's 6 months by now, Elijah. And I show up, and what would you at that juncture do? So here we are today, day one. We would just jump in the water. And
day one's a big day. I don't like to rush into it because I know just as much. I've been that mom. That's poolside with my kid, not knowing what's going on. So I try to, go over all the paperwork. We go over everything. I explain the ISR completely.
Okay.
I tell them every day exactly what we're doing. Nothing is by surprise. You might see videos on social media that shows people throwing kids in the pool. ISR does not do that.
Okay, so that I should have never. I got Lindsay in here observing. I did that with strike one with my first daughter. It's probably why now she's like, Dad, I'm traumatized by all this. I mean, I did that, and I was. You know why, Lewis? Want to know why? Because Rachel, Stephanie, you know why? Lindsay? Because that's what happened to me. They threw me in, and I remember I didn't hold my breath, so I got water, went up my nose, and I started choking. But then I thought, well, it's because you got to hold your breath. So blow in the face. So the blow in the face thing came in, which you said is another one of those things. That's not the way to do it.
No. Our first thing to do is, especially, and she knows with having Savannah, first thing we work on for lessons is we have to work on breath control. Make sure the breath control is correct. So we're paying attention to the respirations. We're paying attention to going in the water and making sure their mouth's not open so they're not drinking the pool. So we're paying very close attention to that. And that is the first thing that has to be concrete, perfect before we can move on to train them anymore.
Well, how do we get them for the kid who's going to be like the open mouth and then get the water, or versus the one that goes making bubbles? What do we?
So if they make bubbles, I don't really gratify that, or I don't say blow bubbles, because for me, and I hate it. I hate it when I hear people say blow bubbles.
I know. I just said it. She's hating me now. Could we? I just said it like.
Well, it's mostly because I teach in a pool. Well, right now,
I'm that person that know. I'm
I teach
speaking
with other instructors.
Yeah.
So, and there's other types of instructors. And then when I hear them say that, I'm like, oh no, don't do that. And it's because you have to think about it. Your body buoyancy. So while the kid is swimming and floating, they have to figure out their own body buoyancy. And when you blow your bubbles, that is your float. That is your air.
Interesting.
So if you blow your bubbles, you're going to get deeper in the water, or either when you try to turn over and go to a float that you think you have, I mean, you're going to be underneath the water and you're going to be like,
You know what? You're right. Because when I go and I lose my earplugs all the time at the Y, and I always go where it's like 10 feet deep. And it always is where it's the most depth. You know, it's like, son of a gun, geez. And I see it floating real slow, and it goes left to right. There's not a straight line when it goes down. So I do, because you'll stay on top.
Right.
If you don't blow bubbles to let the air out of your lungs, so your buoyancy, that makes sense. But as you're going down, I feel that pressure on my head, and I'm like, hurry up, get it. And we go up and spring up, and you're back to the surface again. But
so
you're watching this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just scratching. Is it fair to say I'm scratching the surface here? There's a lot into this. So it's so encouraged as somebody goes to an expert. You're certified, right, in this field. And Rachel, you feel good about that. You know, you went to a certified trainer to do this. I mean,
you can't claim the ISR name without being certified. I mean, I know they go through intense situations and everything.
I can see how much you're looking at this, how critical. Once you figured out the buoyancy, what if a child's not picking up on this type of procedure to know when to release air and what not to? How long does it take on average to get them to flip on their back? I mean, how does that, some of it's innate, some of it seems like it just happens. I mean, like I said, I lucked out with my kid who's not doing it the right way, but I got him to finally do it, and I would put him there. I kind of would hold him. I'd have him get on my back, and I would swim with him in the Y, and I would do different things. But there's a lot of different things that you're going step by step to do it right.
Right.
So then, therefore, when the time comes, it's like ingrained in the brain. Would that
right? And as long with the 6 weeks teaching all this, for one, I've been doing it for 6 years now. It's going on 6, and I have never had a kid that I've said, okay, they couldn't get it. I've never had to say that
incredible?
To a parent.
This is so awesome. Rachel's going like, and you witnessed
swim lessons when I was younger.
Jeez, Rachel, you didn't take ISR, Rachel.
I don't think it was around.
It wasn't around. That's true. It wasn't around.
But I failed swim lessons.
You took the Bob Jeswald course in swim lessons. You don't want that, which we found out today. And Stephanie's like strangling me in her head, like, Bob's the bubble blower. We don't like the bubble blowing Bob. Yeah, but
there's so many things, and I get asked all the time, but there's so many things, and that's why it's so important for me to educate the parents while we're going through these 6 weeks. Because there's so much that people just assume.
Sure.
You know? And I'm like, no, that's not true. And I mean, ISR is, swimming lessons, but we have so much medical behind it.
And that's
that's huge.
That would be huge. Give me one part of that, the medical part that really helps to increase the education and awareness.
Well, for one, just to start that is I'm an ultrasound tech. And when my child was 9 months old, my first kid, I was looking at how can I get him to swim lessons. And everybody had baby mommy and me and stuff like that. And nobody would teach before 2 years.
Sure.
And I'm like, what? My kid's all over the place. And my parents have a pool. My husband's parents have a pool. We're always at the lake. We're at the beach. And I, be having my medical background that I have as an ultrasound tech, when I researched ISR and I saw all the background behind it, I was like, this is it. This is the only place I feel safe taking my kid. Because how do you teach a kid that doesn't communicate?
Right, because you get to that pool sometimes, and you've all witnessed this. I have in my life. I'm sure you guys have, everybody in the studio at home listening as you're driving. You know, the screaming kid, like the kid is being like sent to the lions in the lion den. It's,
Yes.
and you hear it like, you're like, oh my God, what is going on here? So when this is something you got to deal with too, you see that, so that you got to temper that down and get the other kids calm, because you hear this crazy kid over here, but the 6-month-old hears that, they may start getting scared and they may start crying. So there's a lot going on. So is it more together with other kids, or do you do more private lessons?
ISR is always private.
Okay.
It's always one-on-one with that child. I do lessons every 10 minutes because ISR is only 10 minutes. With the research, with the medical research behind ISR, they discovered that children should not be in lessons any longer than 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, they lose their concentration. They don't remember the information. And that's when you get into, they'll just start playing. They'll start drinking the pool, which that's getting into dry drowning incidents. Sure. And on top of that, you have to have the consistency. Everybody knows that as a parent.
Sure.
Your kid only learns by you telling them over and over and over again. And it's the same thing with ISR. It's 10 minutes. It's Monday through Friday. And it works.
6 weeks?
6 weeks.
6 weeks, and you're there. Is there, I want to say hallelujah. Could you give me a hallelujah? Could we do a hallelujah? Hallelujah, because you know, if there were pastors out there doing 10-minute sermons, think about that. You get everybody's attention. You know, when they start going like, no offense to my pastor, and I love him because but when you get repetitious and you go, what happens to the congregation? Same thing with children. They start to drift. They open their mouth, and people do when they sleep too. They go, ah. And if they're in a pool doing the same thing, they're drinking the water. I get it. Small chunks, you absorb better. That makes sense. And these are sponges too.
Think of a toddler, you know, when you're talking to a toddler, they have your attention. I mean, literally only for a short period of time. After that, they're like, oh, bunny. Oh,
yeah,
this.
right. You're right.
Oh,
No, that makes sense. It does. That makes sense. I mean, I'm really, this to me is just educational. And we haven't even, excuse the phrase here, but deep dive into what you really do. We're only touching now on the first beginning. Give me a couple other little small things that people are going to learn about ISR. Like, what else would be like, let's jump ahead to week 3. Okay. Where are we now in week 3?
So by week 3, normally when you have, because I call those foundation lessons. So when they first come to me, they need the 6 weeks. That's foundations. And that 6 weeks, by the 3rd week, they've already got their swim. They've already got their float. And now there's so many small things we're installing in them. Okay. You know, showing them how to get from point A to point B. Pay attention where you're at. I'm starting to get out of their image because for a while I've been swimming in front of them. They've been following me and like going and getting my hands as targets and stuff like that. And now I'm kind of getting away from their view because everything we teach is independent. So me getting out of the image, it's tough and it's a big adjustment. But now they know, oh, I can go get that.
Right. I
because
can do it by myself.
Everything is independent. And we want them to be independent if they're ever by themselves. But usually on 3rd week, which she's starting to see that, Rachel's starting to see this, is I'm going to start taking them out to deep end because I'm done forming them. I'm done forming them.
Okay, you got the foundation
I've got the foundation that I need. I still have small little tweaks to work with, which is like their distance, using their arms when they're in their float so we can start working on moving while you're in that float. And once I get them getting those arms, then I can start working on backstrokes.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Oh my gosh. It sounds like Jack LaLanne here or some of these kids are going to be. But you know what? Part of it is too, as you said that, I would want more. I mean, if I was this kid, and I would even thinking in the mind of a child, you give them a little bit, that 10-minute chunk of lesson.
Right.
And the yearning for that would make them practice it over in their head. Well, they already got that. I want more because that's a child thing. Like, keep me going. I like that concept. The more I hear, I'm gonna apply that to everything in my life. Few things. Certain things. Yeah, some things you want a little longer, but that makes so much sense. I mean, this is like good stuff. Okay, so we're week 3 with Savannah now.
Yep.
So what are you seeing? What are you seeing?
I'm seeing her. She's able to go long ways back
The
and forth
length
to
of
the
the
pool.
pool.
I bet
length
you
of the
so
pool.
Yeah.
gratifying to see that.
I mean, the first couple times I had to like hide my face because I'm like, I can't see this. I
Sure.
can't see
It's-
this.
that's
just because
traumatic
of
for
the
it.
traumatic.
Sure,
But
sure.
seeing her being Savannah being confident and knowing, you know, she's scared at first. You could tell they're scared at first
Right.
because they don't see Stephanie. They're used to seeing her.
Yeah.
They don't that safety.
Stephanie's the
safety
safe net. You're the
Yeah.
safe net. When I see Stephanie, I feel relaxed. Now I feel like I'm floating in space. That's what I feel like.
But you know, once they get over that initial fear, you know, and they get so proud. I've watched her deal with other kids, because Savannah's curious at watching the other kids too. So
Sure.
it's kind of a fun thing. But she'll cheer them on and everything. But you know, seeing them how proud they are when they swim from the steps to the deep end back to the steps. And
That's right.
They do it quick.
Yes.
Probably quicker than I could do.
No,
if
no,
I
you know
got
what?
in the
No, they
pool.
probably
It's-
would. They
It's
would.
impressive.
It is impressive. We got future. Now, do any of these kids you know, I don't know how long, I mean, Stephanie, you're not that old, but have you seen any children now already go like in high school swimming now and they're like swim? Are they to that level? Or is this more for, this is about keeping our, you know, the general person pretty safe? Or have you saw anyone get so inspired they're now like this crazy swimmer?
So I'm huge. When I start teaching ISR, I start talking to my parents about, you know, they have about, you know, dancing or football or softball. And I'm like, swimming is such a good sport to get into. If you want your kids to get into something and you really want them to be busy, keep them in swimming lessons. Keep them coming back to me. I have refreshers and I have maintenance lessons that I do throughout the whole year. And those are for my current students that I've already taught.
Right.
And I've seen kids, no, they're not at high school yet,
Yeah.
the ones I've taught.
Right.
But I have kids that are in competition swimming.
Good.
There's the Hurricanes in
Yeah.
Columbus.
Yep. They're at the YMCA. They
Yep.
use that facility there.
So I've had a couple of them that's in competition swimming, and I have parents that send me texts all the time. They're like, "Oh, look, you know, they're doing this good in the swimming." And then some parents are like, you know, "No, we're good. That's all I want." And I'm like, "That's fine." But then I have a lot. I have more than half my students that they want to keep on coming back and keep them strong and
Right.
just make that be their other activity, which I'm 100% behind that.
Good. So this is my one of my last things here I was going to say. So if you don't use it, do you lose it?
No, you still have it. But my biggest thing that I talk to parents about all the time is as the child gets bigger, just think about a kid. When you have a child that's, you know, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that, you're changing their clothes out every 3 to 6 months,
Yeah.
maybe
Sure.
once a year,
Sure.
something like that. It depends on where the age frame is that we're at. But if you're changing their clothes that big, they're getting bigger, they're getting heavier, and their swim
Sure.
and their float, it's going to change. So now we've got somebody that hasn't been in the pool for 6 months because it's been, you know, winter, and they get back in the pool. It's going to look maybe rusty. They still have the swim, they still have the float, but bring them to me right before the summer starts and let me show them, this is your swim, this is your float. And it takes me like 1 to 2 weeks. Within 1 week, it's done. I've gotten their swim, I've gotten their float
Awesome.
back.
Good.
But now I'm working on, okay, you're big. You got better motor skills now. You're a bigger kid now. I want you to do some strokes for me. So we're working on strokes.
Brilliant. I love
Yeah.
this stuff. And Rachel, you feel satisfied as
Oh
a
my
mom.
gosh, I
Mom,
love it.
And then she's just, yeah.
Savannah, every night when I put her to bed, I say, okay, we got to get up early. For
Tell
swim
people how
lessons.
old is Savannah.
Savannah's 3.5.
Yeah, so they know. I think we kind of touched
Yeah.
on it, but I want to be specific.
She's
yeah.
3.5, but I mean, every night she's like, swim lessons with Stephanie? I'm like, yes, we got swim
That's
lessons.
so cool.
And every morning she's like, I want to go swimming with Stephanie,
Oh.
play with Stephanie. So,
Good. So there you go. So you strike up some really good things. And you could tell you as both moms, you certainly are very nurturing. And this is safety. This is mental health, like making you feel like I feel great and satisfied. You can go somewhere and be relaxed. It's not saying you're going to turn your back on your kid, but at least when these things happen, it's life. It is what it is. No one's at fault. We're all human. Can't be their helicopter mom and dad 24/7 over them. You just can't do it. There's time. You're going to turn away. It happens. It is what it is. But
I
there's
think
ways.
you said it perfectly.
Yeah, and in your case too, I mean, which is great, Rachel. You give some folks some things like that, which I never even thought of, like things in the pool. Take them out, or don't leave if they're next to you. You can, you know, you don't want to leave that skimmer there. And not saying that's what happened, Louis, but the little things like that. This is why you're serving a bigger bigger deal here. Be so proud of yourself. Everything you're doing, God's smiling on you. Louis is here with us. That's the beauty of it all. I'm so thankful he made it through. He's a miracle child, and he's helping us through this. So on a real happy note, you guys are doing great stuff. I hope anybody out there can check it out. We're going to keep the link right here on our podcast. Ours in particular, we will put Chattahoochee Valley, ISR.com for those local listeners, those who are far. Please check it out. It's worth every bit of it. It's infant swimming resources. These self-rescue programs are out there. Do a search, do a Google, I guess. Right. We'll have a link for you anyway on the bottom of the page, which you have probably links within it. Great information. It's a quick read, like you said. She's all about 10 minutes, Stephanie, so it took me about 10 minutes to go through it. So perfect. So there you go. So everybody, thank you so much. Keep it up. Inspire. Doing great things. This helps out our mental well-being. Physical fitness could come out that these kids become swimmers. By the way, one of the best sports that kids can do because everyone participates. Not one of those sports that your child's not 100%. We're not getting the baseball home run. I won't pick on those other sports. They're the pretentious sports versus like running, track and field, and swimming. And there you go. Okay, so if you want to hear more about this, you can check it out anytime. We are here for you right now on Spotify. We're on, of course, Apple and iHeart. We're on YouTube. We're at WRBL.com. These are places where you can get these great resources. You can see our lovely ladies here in person, and we'll always connect you through social media, through Bob Jeswald, WRBL, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I have a link there for you, so anytime you want to do it. We'll see you on the flip side, guys, and I may need a refresher course. Obviously, I do. I just learned that today. Jeez, I messed up. Thank God. Kids are okay.